Hey there, Danielle Matthews here. I am coming to you live from Florida. Today is Monday, so it is book club day. And in today's book club, we are on chapter 9 of A New Earth. So if you are joining me live, let me know when you get here. If you're catching the replay, let me know that you're catching the replay. And if you've got any questions, I, of course, always come back and read them. So this was just a beautiful, it's like the culmination of a lot of what this book has been about. If you're catching this for the first time, that's okay. If you missed the rest of it, this is like really the crux of it all. The chapter is called Your Inner Purpose. And I want to start out, actually not at the beginning, but there's a dialogue that he gets into here where he says, a lot of his life's work, him being Eckhart Tolle, there's a lot of people asking a very similar question about, well, why are they here? And what is the purpose of all of this? And so I thought we would start with this because I think it will resonate with a lot of you that maybe have felt similarly. So the question is, I don't know exactly what it is, but I want some change in my life. I want expansion. I want to be doing something meaningful, and yes, I want prosperity and the freedom that comes with it. I want to do something significant, something that makes a difference in the world. But if you ask me what exactly I want, I would have to say that I don't know. Can you help me find my life's purpose? That is exactly what this chapter is about. So if you've ever felt that way or were curious about this yourself, this is what it's all about. So I, as always, have a bajillion notes to go through with you guys. But I wanted to start out by asking, just put a 1 in the chat if you can relate to anything like this, all right? So first, have you ever been so caught up in the routines of life that you feel like you're being deprived of the significance of life? You're just so caught in the routine, all of a sudden you're like, I don't know how it's the middle of March. Like, I thought we were just celebrating Christmas. You've been so caught up in the routine. Is that familiar to anybody? I know it is for me. Sometimes I'm just like, wait, what happened? Where did life just go? Do you ever feel like life has passed you by? Maybe for those of you that are older, you're feeling like, life has passed me by. Or maybe you're feeling like life is passing you by and you're kind of like, what is that song where it says like life's like an hourglass glued to the table, right? It's like you're watching the sand fall, realizing like there is no reverse. I can't go backwards. And I'm not quite sure I'm making the most of what's here right now. Have you ever felt restricted by the demands of your family, by the demands of your work, your job? Put a 1 in the chat. Do you feel too much stress? Do you feel like there's too much stress in your life? Or opposite, do you feel like there's too much boredom? Like there's like not enough going on? Maybe you're at the opposite extreme. At the same time, do you feel like life is too frantic? It's one thing after another, after another, after another, after another, after another, after another, another. Or are you feeling the opposite, like it's too stagnant, like nothing's changing, nothing's going on, I'm just sitting here? It's interesting, right? These polarities, but they're felt depending where you are in life and who you are. Have you ever longed for prosperity and the freedom that will come with that prosperity? Put a 1 in the chat. All right. I'm seeing lots of 1s over here. Nice. Do you feel like you have everything? So maybe you have the prosperity, but you still feel like life has no meaning. All right. And maybe you're not putting the 1s in the chat, but you're feeling what I'm saying. Okay. It's really interesting. Yeah, I'm seeing the 1s come through. It's really interesting because this is sort of the human predicament. Once your basic needs are taken care of, like, yes, some people, it's survival. They don't have shelter. They don't have food. They don't know where their next meal is coming from. That kind of thing. But as he says at the beginning, as soon as you rise above mere survival, the question of meaning and purpose becomes of paramount importance in your life. And that is where many people are. What is important and what is my purpose? And so the only thing that will fulfill you in this life is your inner purpose. There is absolutely zero substitute for inner purpose. And so the question becomes, well, what is my inner purpose? All right. Inner purpose has absolutely nothing to do with your job, with what you do in this outer world, with being a parent, with being a wife, with being a whatever, insert blank. It has absolutely nothing to do with that, which is interesting because in this world, right, what do we ask little kids? I see these pictures that people put up on Facebook of like their kids like first day of kindergarten or whatever, and I see them always like underneath it, right? So-and-so wants to be an astronaut when they grow up. So-and-so wants to be a dancer, wants to be a dinosaur, wants to be whatever, right? Like we're always putting into the kids' minds, like, what are you becoming in the future? Where are you going? And the truth of the matter is, we're programmed to focus on the future. We're programmed to create something in this outer world. But the truth of the matter is, it will never fulfill you. There is absolutely no substitute for finding your inner purpose. And then your inner purpose will feed your outer purpose and what you do in this world. But once you have to find the inner first. And what he says is that the inner purpose is really about what you are. It's about your consciousness. Whereas your outer purpose is like the secondary thing. It's like what you're doing in the world. And the inner purpose for you, for me, for every single human being on this planet is what? For those of you that read the book, what is the purpose for all of us on this planet? Very simple, very plain. It is to awaken. Your purpose, my purpose, the purpose of humanity, it is the same for each and every human being on this planet. It is to awaken. That is the next evolutionary step for humanity. It is the continuous emerging of intelligence. You're exactly right, Tina Karen, you got it. It is the emergence of the next generation of intelligence. So up to this point, right, there's been a lot of physical evolution. The next evolutionary step is a step in consciousness. It's like plants going from being just leaves to having flowers. It is a leap in consciousness. And that quantum leap is where humanity is now. And that leap has to do with you realizing what you are and what you are not. All right. And when you are in alignment internally, when you realize the truth of who you are, when you actually awaken, that's the foundation from which you now can then go into the outer world and do things. And you're going to be doing it in an incredible way. All right. He says on page 258, the true or primary purpose of your life cannot be found on the outer level. Your purpose is to awaken. You share that purpose with every other person on the planet. It is the purpose of humanity, an essential part of the purpose of the whole, the universe, and its emerging intelligence. Finding and living in alignment with the inner purpose is the foundation for fulfilling your outer purpose. It's the basis for true success. Without it, it's the bottom line, right? Without it, you cannot have true success in the outer world. He says, without that alignment, you can still achieve certain things, yes, but through effort, through struggle, through determination, through sheer hard work and willpower, through cunning. But there is no joy in such endeavor, and it invariably falls apart or falls into some form of suffering. Awakening is a shift in consciousness in which thinking and awareness separate. When you awaken, you realize I am more than my thoughts. I am the thing that is witnessing them. All right. So what does it actually mean, guys? Well, it's a process. Awakening is when you first realize that there is separation. In yogic philosophy, I've shared with this, the yogis really contemplated this question, like if there was a single truth that if known could solve everything, what would that truth be? And that truth is the realization that you are more than your thoughts. That simple truth. And it's not conceptually understanding it, it's actually living it. It's being in a space where there were absolutely no thoughts coming through. And you're in this deep presence with the present moment, and you feel more alive than anything else out there that you could possibly experience. Instead of being lost in your thinking, on page 259, when you are awake, you recognize yourself as the awareness behind it. Awareness takes over from thinking. Awareness is conscious connection with the universal intelligence. It is another word for it is presence. Consciousness without thought. That is where we're going. That is what you're needing to awaken to. That is the key, my friends. That is the key. And many of you, if you're in this book club, I would say you're already in the process of awakening because it resonates. And those people that jump onto this and they're like, what is this woman talking about? And they leave, they're not there yet. Okay? And it's interesting because consciousness is not something that can be forced. All right? It is not something, having the experience of no thought and realizing, wow, I am the one that is witnessing. I'm the one that's here before, during, and after every thought, every emotion, every experience of life. That realization, kinesthetic experience of it, is something that happens through grace. You cannot force it. There's no steps you can follow to get to it. You don't earn credits toward it. It's not like, well, sinners will never get there and the saints will get there. Sometimes the sinners get there faster because they go through and have terrible experiences, boom, that wake them up. Any attempt you have at doing it is going to be ego related. If you're like, oh, well, I'm doing this so that I can become enlightened. No, that's not what it's about. That's a thought of what it's about. All right. That's like spiritually bypassing, life and going to this place of what you conceptualize spirituality to be and this connection to be. That's not it. That would be living in a mind-made version of it. All right. So some of you might be asking, well, how could it be the primary purpose in my life if I can't actually get there, that it has to just, gracefully fall upon me? And what he says is, that's just how it is. And it's going to be stimulated when it's right for your soul and in your soul's journey. It's just the way that it is. And there's nothing you can really do about that. Okay. The thing is, though, once it starts, it cannot be reversed. Once you realize this and you're able to disidentify from your thoughts and you're able to create space, all of a sudden you experience that space more and more often. There's a pause before you react. There's a realization of, why is this pattern of behavior continuing to happen? Why do I keep automatically getting angry? Why do I just automatically assume the worst? Why is this happening? And you start to realize the program that's been running you that is false, that is creating an illusion in the world. And you realize that I'm not my past. I'm here right now in the present moment, and everything's actually fine. And you start to release and let go of the thing that you're not, so you can more fully stand in the thing that you are. All right. And once that starts, your ego can derail you sometimes. All right. But ultimately it cannot be reversed. The process has already started. And the beautiful thing is that, this book, as we went through this book club, it was really showing you and highlighting the ways that the ego can try and draw you away from this and draw you past it. And so you can start to recognize again and again and again who you are and who you are not. Because once you glimpse this, guys, there's a responsibility. And on page 261, he really gets into this. He says, with the grace of awakening comes responsibility. You can either try to go on as if nothing has happened, or you can see its significance and recognize the arising of awareness as the most important thing that can happen to you. Opening yourself to the emerging consciousness and bringing its light into this world then becomes the primary purpose of your life. He then went on to quote Einstein. Had any of you heard this Einstein quote? I had never heard it before. The quote is, "I want to know the mind of God," Einstein said. "The rest are details." And he was getting at this same thing. What is the mind of God? The mind of God is consciousness. It's presence. It's that awareness that is there. The rest is details. What do you mean? Well, it's the details. The details are the outer purpose. The details are all the little things of life. Those are the details. All right? While you perhaps are still waiting for something significant to happen in your life, you may not realize that the most significant thing that can happen to a human being has already happened to you. It has actually happened within you. And it is the beginning of the separation process from thinking into awareness. And it's a massive thing. All right. And put a 5 in the chat. High five me if you've started this process, and in doing so, you start to kind of feel a little crazy. You realize, you know what? What drives the world no longer drives me. I don't want to go achieve and get the best job and be the best at everything and da 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 da. I'm realizing that's never going to fulfill me, and you pull back. And you start to feel a little bit alien to the world that's around you, right? You feel that you're like in this no man's land where you're like, well, I don't belong to that world anymore, but what world do I belong to? All right, people refer to it all the time as like, the movie The Matrix, or like Neo comes out of the Matrix and he's like, whoa. It's like, once you pop out of it, you're like, wait, that is like this crazy illusion of a world where people are chasing after, like they're on a hamster wheel. They're chasing after something and they're never going to get there. And each time they think they arrive, well, then there's another mountain to climb and another mountain to climb and another mountain to climb until finally you just go, why am I climbing this freaking mountain in the first place? And you stop. So a lot of you relate with this, which is why you're probably in book club. All right, because what he says is that this no man's land is the place between two worlds, where you start to realize I'm not my ego and everything it's been telling me is actually not where I'm going to find what I'm looking for. I'm going to find it in the silence behind it. But you haven't quite integrated yet. I promise you there is a time that will come where you don't feel like such a stranger to it all and you realize, wow, I'm in this world. I've had this awakening to then spread my light and be the carrier of this light and awareness into the world in everything that I do. And therefore every single moment, no matter what I'm doing, becomes my purpose. It becomes the most profound thing possible because you're doing it through presence. And the divine is present in you in that very moment and in every moment. And that impact is phenomenal. That vibration that you will hold will just shift the room when you walk into it. That's how inner and outer purpose start to interweave. Does it make sense? So I started this chapter reading a bit of this dialogue. I thought it was really fun. This is different than his other sections of the book because he goes to this back and forth dialogue where it's basically like people kind of continuing to push back on him about this concept of purpose. And so I'll just read it again, right? The question that gets set up, Karen says, becoming more comfortable with it. Yeah, beautiful. You start to realize, no, I'm not crazy. And there's other people out here that are going through this. And it's just, I'm unlearning. It's like you're shedding skin. It's like how the caterpillar must feel before it becomes the butterfly. Where it's like in this cocoon, in this in-between world where everything's breaking down, but also you realize, well, it's breaking down because it's about to reformulate into something that's totally different, going from crawling to flying, going from having to move through the world on a leaf to being able to fly through the air. Like that's the shift that you are making, okay? That's the shift that you're making. So this dialogue, we're going to come back to kind of where we started today. The question was, I don't know exactly what it is, but I want some change in my life. I want expansion. I want to be doing something meaningful. And yes, I want prosperity and the freedom that comes with it. I want to do something significant, something that makes a difference in the world. But if you asked me what I want, I would have to say I don't know. Can you help me find my life's purpose? So how many people have felt this way, right? Have asked this, have wanted this, have strived for this. And I think it's interesting because his answer, right, really kind of irritates the person. He says, well, your purpose right now is to be talking to me. It's so obvious to Eckhart Tolle. He's like, well, the purpose of any life is to be in the present moment. And so your purpose right now is to have a conversation with me. Like, what do you mean you're looking for your life's purpose? Like, it's right here, right now. You have it. It's in our conversation. This is it. And the guy just doesn't get it. He says, well, so what do you mean? You mean I'm supposed to just sit at my job every day and push papers all day? And that's what I'm supposed to be doing with my life? That's the great purpose of my life? No way. And Eckhart Tolle says, yeah, your purpose, what he keeps pointing to, right? This guy keeps pushing and pushing, or girl, I don't know if it's a guy or girl, but keeps pushing and pushing him. And Eckhart Tolle keeps pointing to what? To the present moment. He says that, yeah, maybe right now your purpose is to push papers at that job, but I'm not saying that's what it's going to be for 30 years. But as we are here and now, right now, that's the job you have. And so, yeah, your purpose is going to come through in that thing that you're doing, in that endeavor, because you're going to do it fully, because that's what you're meant to be doing right now. And so you're going to do it with presence and awareness in the moment to moment. Ego, right? You can see it in the pushback in this dialogue. The ego is like, no, you're not getting it. You're not understanding my question, right? I'm meant to accomplish something. I'm meant to get acknowledged for something. I'm meant to achieve something. And Eckhart Tolle keeps coming back and saying, no, you are meant to be present, to be whole in this moment. And when you are present and whole in this moment, every action therefore becomes your purpose. And there is so much presence within what you do, it will shift and change the people around you and you, even in the most simplest of things, be it turning a page, be it pushing a button, if you do it with full presence, all right? And the person just can't get over this. He's like, no, you obviously don't understand what I'm asking, right? He says, I think there is some misunderstanding here. For you, purpose means what you are doing now. But for me, it means having an overall aim in life, something big and significant that gives meaning to what I do, something that makes a difference. Shuffling papers in an office is not that, and I know that. All right, like how familiar does this seem? You probably have this own conversation in your head. What am I supposed to be doing? I don't know, blah, 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 right? And Eckhart Tolle comes back and he says, as long as you are unaware of being, you will seek meaning only within the dimension of doing and of future. I'm going to read that again. As long as you are unaware of being, what he's saying to this guy is you're asking me a question and you're totally missing it. You're missing it because you're obsessed with your thinking mind and your ego, and you're not realizing there is a being back there behind it that is more significant than anything the ego mind could create in this world of form. He's saying as long as you are unaware of being, you will seek meaning only within the dimension of doing and future. You're going to try to seek meaning externally. You're going to try and create something, achieve something, get acknowledged for something externally. And if you do that, you're missing it. You're going to get it, and then boom, next mountain appears. You're going to have to climb this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and there's a never ending. You're on a hamster wheel, right? Any meaning we find on that level is true only relatively and temporarily, all right? Because it's in the external world, and that is not where you find true meaning in life. You know, the yogis say that consciousness came here to forget itself only to then be able to remember the truth of who it is so it can experience itself. Meaning the ocean comes into the form as a wave, and as a wave, it's in this whole new world, right? It's experiencing the air, it's seeing land, it's seeing the sky and everything else. And so it's like, wow, and it gets completely distracted by that world and forgets that it is the ocean. But realizes everything in this external world, none of it ever actually fulfills me. I still feel empty until it realizes, oh, I feel full when I realize the truth of who I am, the ocean, inside of me. And then I can experience this world, but through a place of being whole, knowing the truth of who I am. That's what they say is the purpose of it all. To forget who you are, only to remember, and then experience life through that full conscious awareness and being whole. All right? It's a big concept we're talking about today. Okay. So on page, let's see. So he talks about how, like, if you're seeking your purpose and your fulfillment in external things, like he talks about why it's temporary, why eventually it doesn't work out. He says, look, if you are searching for something in form, you're going to be bound by time, and therefore it will be temporary because everything in this world of form is temporary. There's a beginning and an end to all of it. And so if you're looking for something to fulfill you externally, it's going to end. He says, look, if you get your fulfillment through raising your children, well, guess what? Your kids are going to grow. And eventually they're not going to need you, or they're not going to listen to you when they're teenagers, or whatever it might be. That's not where your purpose is. He says, if your purpose is in helping others, well, wait a second. Your purpose depends then upon people being less well off than you for forever, for eternity. There needs to be a lesser and a better. That's not good for the collective. He says, if it means excelling or winning at something, well, what happens when you can no longer win? Do you now have no purpose and you just have to go back to your memories about when you used to win? That's not a good life. He says, is it about making it in your field, becoming the top of the top? Well, in order to do that, somebody else has to lose. And if your fulfillment in life and your purpose requires others to lose, that's not it, right? He says, now I am not saying here that helping others or caring for your children or striving for excellence in whatever field is not a worthwhile thing to do. For many people, they are an important part of their outer purpose. But outer purpose alone is always relative, unstable, and impermanent, right? It's not about what you're doing, but how you're doing it. Does this make sense? This is like the distinction of the whole chapter, okay? This does not mean that you should not be engaged in those activities. It means you should connect them to your inner primary purpose so that a deeper meaning flows into what you do. When you are connected to the being within you, you will be more connected with your children. When you're in presence, The way that you interact and raise your children will be completely different than if you're doing it from the ego mind and what you think you should do and shouldn't do and how they should behave and shouldn't behave, and you'll miss it. You won't connect with the beingness, right? You can do all the right things, but they won't. Your kids won't even feel that loving connection. Even though you're like, well, I'm doing everything right. You're not, because you're not present. You see what I'm saying? It's the same in everything. It's not saying don't do those things. It's saying do it while connected to your innermost self. Do it while present. All right? If you ignore your inner purpose, no matter what you do, even if it looks spiritual, the ego will creep into how you do it, and so the means will corrupt the ends. But the state of consciousness out of which, in other words, not your aims or your actions are primary, but the state of consciousness out of which they come is the primary thing, right? It's not about raising the kids. It's about the consciousness with which you raise them. Be conscious in all things that you do. Once that foundation is there, once that consciousness, that awareness is there, the thinking mind can drop away. Your external purpose becomes charged with spiritual power because your aims and intentions will be one with the evolutionary impulse of the universe. Remember, the evolutionary impulse, why billions of humans are on this planet right now, is to shift and raise consciousness. And so if you align with shifting and raising consciousness, everything you do will be charged with what he calls spiritual power, because your aim and intentions are in alignment with the collective, with humanity, with the evolutionary impulse of the whole. Does that make sense? And so the chatter can stop about, oh my God, I should be doing this and that and whatever. It's like, no, be where you are and be in full presence where you are with the people around you and show up fully to whatever the moment requires that you're in. And if you do that with presence, right action, right thought, everything will come through you. You don't have to worry about anything when you're fully in the present moment, doing what's best in that moment. When you look upon what you do or where you are as the main purpose of your life, you negate time. When you just say, I'm here now and I do what's best in this moment now, time doesn't matter. You're not anxious and worried about the future. You're not reminiscing about the past. You're here now. And when you do that, you negate the ego. You cut the ego out because the ego can't exist in the present moment. The ego exists in the future and the ego exists in the past. It's made up from the past. He says, 265, when you negate time, you negate the ego. Whatever you do, you will be doing extraordinarily well because the doing itself becomes the focal point of your attention. Your doing then becomes a channel through which consciousness enters the world. This means there is a quality in what you do, or even in the most simple action. You're in alignment with the evolutionary impulse to bring conscious awareness to this planet. And so if you're present in each moment and you're doing that, your actions come through very differently. Yeah, Tina, I agree with you. It's like, whoa, this is big stuff. He says, whenever you become anxious or stressed, right? How many of us become anxious and stressed? Whenever you become anxious and stressed, outer purpose has taken over and you have lost sight of your inner purpose. You have forgotten that your state of consciousness is primary and everything else is secondary. When you find yourself anxious, when you find yourself stressed, you've been pulled from the present moment. Your ego has taken over again. You've forgotten your primary purpose. Those of you in my Inner Mastery community, right? Some of you have taken my program. Hey, Doug. Those of you that are in the community, we just worked on this year your primary intention. It's the same thing. Primary intention roots you into the truth of who you are and why your soul came here. It is about connecting to that consciousness and bringing it out moment by moment in everything that you do. Okay? That's what it's about. Only when you align yourself with the present moment do you have access to that power. Or it may be more true to say, it then has access to you and through you to this world. Right? We are the conduit through which it's coming. And I love that statement. So, right, because we're so in our own heads. Let me read it again. Only when you align yourself with the present moment do you have access to that power. And he says, hang on a second. That's sort of like an ego way of looking at it. Really, it would be more true to say, that it has access to you. Consciousness now has access to you to move through you into this world, which is why we are here, right? Consciousness came here to experience itself, and it has to do it through us, through this being that we are, that hears, that sees, that tastes, that smells, all the things, right? He talks about what Jesus said when he said, "It is not I, but the Father within me who does this work. I can of my own self do nothing." Right? Powerful. All right, I'll just end with this final statement because I'm just all the time. 267. Anxiety, stress, and negativity cut you off from that power. The illusion that you are separate from the power that runs the universe then returns. You feel yourself to be alone again, struggling against something or trying to achieve this or that. But why did anxiety, stress, or negativity arise? Because you turned away from the present moment. And why did you do that? You thought something else was more important, and you forgot your main purpose. One small error, one misperception creates a world of suffering. All right? So, guys, tag a friend that needs to hear this. Listen to this book club again. Read this section again. Powerful, powerful, powerful stuff. We will finish out chapter 9 this week. It's another about 10 pages or so 267 to 278 in my book. It's just the finishing of chapter 9. It's finishing this dialogue. All right, so we'll go deeper on this. If you've got comments, questions, stick them over in Telegram as well. We will be there. And I am grateful for you all for being part of this discussion, for coming together and lifting and shifting and reminding us of the consciousness that we are, so we can shift our world and the world of others. So appreciate you. Have a beautiful week, guys.